and welcome back to Ljubljana Talks live here at IMEX 2024 as we have an amazing program running these days here live on the trade show. And with us we have Richard Crawford from Leave No Trace TV.
Yep.
Thank you, Richard, for taking your time.
It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
It's brilliant to have you. We kind of started the conversation off the camera, and I think we can just pick it up from where we are. With Gorazd, we are always excited to have new guests with different views of things. And we touched briefly, you come from Glasgow originally.
I do.
You live in Virginia.
I do.
How do the two compare?
Very, very different places. United States is obviously a place of opportunity and wealth and opulence, that they obviously have their own issues, but in general, there's an opportunity there to really get ahead in life. The town that I grew up in, Glasgow, Paisley, that part of Scotland, the central belt of Scotland, is a very working class area of Scotland, and with that comes working class problems. I think we referenced earlier the movie Trainspotting, right, in Edinburgh. Very, very similar, but it does give you an appreciation. What it did was give me an appreciation for what it looks like to not have material things or, amazing experiences, and then moved to a place in the United States which offered me everything. And I was a young man when I moved there. I was only 21. So it was quite eye-opening, and it's the best thing I ever did.
In a way, listening to what you just said, it reminds me of what Billy Connolly said in his autobiography.
Yeah.
How do you relate to him in this regard?
First of all, he's my hero. Billy Connolly is my hero. I can relate to him because, especially his early comedy, because his early comedy was about the Glasgow people and how they laugh at themselves. You know, how Scots are really good at that, at making fun of themselves. So yeah, he's my hero, absolute hero.
Richard, is America still a land of opportunities?
It has its issues like everywhere else. What I've always said about America is, if you're willing to work hard, then the opportunity's there. Doesn't mean that it happens automatically, but at least it's there. And I have friends that have worked hard all their life in Scotland that will never get to the place they could have got if they'd come to the United States and applied the same work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You work with so many luxury brands, but what is your personal definition of luxury?
Luxury for me is definitely experiential. So it's not possessive, it's not material. Something that is comfort, indulgence, pleasure, but with a focus on sustainability, because that is my passion. So for me, anything where I can have an immersive experience in culture or in some kind of environment that focuses on sustainability, to me is luxury. And anything that makes the planet a better place while you enjoy yourself is luxury.
It's a very interesting conversation, I think, to have talking about luxury, because it's, in a way we start talking about high-end FIT, which is another side of the coin for the meetings industry. It complements one with the other in many ways. A big buzzword in the industry is pleasure, and we've not talked about pleasure much at this trade show, for example. How do you see actually business and leisure come together?
That's a difficult question, because for some people their business is their pleasure. I think some people couldn't stay in their job or couldn't stay in the business that they own if they didn't get some kind of pleasure out of it. Now, on the opposite end of that coin, there are people who are at work who hate their life every single day. So I think it's about finding that balance. I've always said, and of course the older you get, the less you care. That's putting it nicely, right? You don't give a, I've always said, if you're not happy, change it. Change your situation if you're not happy, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, I should have, could have, would have.
Talking about finding balance and talking about, changing things and trying things to change them for the better. We recently saw that Venice implemented the €5 tax. Do you think that's the right step? Do you think it will bring back the Venice we all see on the screen, but we haven't experienced except for the time of COVID?
It's the right step. It's not big enough. So the €5 fee will not it won't put out the Instagrammers, like who only go there to the square to take a picture, and there's millions of them. It's not even just thousands, there's millions of people who go to a place just to get the Instagram photo. So yes, it's the right step. No, it's not enough, but at least there's a conversation and they're trying. It breaks my heart to see images of over-tourism, is what we're talking about here, in cities like Venice, cities like Paris. But in my presentation, I actually, when I was building the presentation, I was looking for an image that represented over-tourism, and I looked at Venice and I looked at beaches that were crowded in Southeast Asia. But the one that hit home the most was a picture that was released, I think last year or the year before. It was the peak of Mount Everest. And there was a line of people waiting to get in the death zone, where your body's literally dying on you. The most difficult, dangerous, and time-consuming place to get to in the world, and they have over-tourism. So that was a long answer. No, it's not enough, and yes, it's the right direction.
I watched some of your episodes. It looks like you have fun.
I have a lot of
It looks
fun.
like a hobby, actually.
Yeah.
So your job is actually really, I would say, fun and hobby.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's also quite demanding. But how did you came to this idea, actually? What is the story behind?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all day about this, so
Yeah.
I'll give you the short version. My original position, I was the ambassador for Glenlivet Scotch whisky, right? So my job was great back then. I represented a luxurious lifestyle through Glenlivet and the Scotch whisky. I taught people how to drink it, taste it, the history of Scotland, all of that stuff. And I eventually started to represent more of a lifestyle. Instead of just one brand, I'd represent the whiskey, the clothes, the shoes, the watch, and then places that I'd visit. And then this was, when I started to visit places, I'd be writing articles for magazines, and then the digital age started to take effect where they wanted videos. So I started to video my experience and put that into the magazine's online element. And then I met a gentleman who's my production partner out of Sydney, Ben Alcott, and we said, let's make a television show about luxurious destinations. It was called initially Out of the Ordinary, and nothing to do with sustainability. And it wasn't until we went to these very luxurious places, but noticed that they had these great programs in place that were actually about sustainability, ecotourism, and what people always forget, social responsibility, cultural and heritage preservation. So we realized that is the story we wanted to tell. That was the short version.
Short version.
Yeah.
So we always ask the same question. This is a little research we are doing during these 2 days. We ask the same question to all our guests.
Yeah.
Is it possible that AI will replace what you are doing?
I don't think so, no. I think AI is a good thing. I think there's a lot of applications where it's very useful. My show, I think what I bring to the television show is my genuine reaction, my human emotion when I see something, hear something, experience something for the first time. I am the eyes, ears, nose, taste of the audience. So I don't think AI can ever relay that kind of emotion that I do on the screen. And it is genuine. I mean, I go to these places. We don't do a lot of research before we go. We kind of show up and we plan it while we're there.
You want to be surprised.
I want to be surprised. I want to have the same reaction as the audience would. The audience watches me and says, "Oh wow, that's how I would react," or "That's how I want to react, so I'm going to go."
So looking for the genuine experience.
Genuine. And again, AI does have a place. It's a very helpful tool, but it's never going to replace, not yet, at least. Maybe talk to me, I'm still alive in 100 years, or I may be just some hologram that AI has produced, but I don't think at this point they can produce a human emotion.
So out of all the series that you've done, what is the one that kind of stuck with you the most?
So that people always ask me that question, and up until January last year, I couldn't answer it. I would say, look, everywhere has a really special experience for me, a special memory, and I can't pick one out until I went to Antarctica. So season 2, which hasn't been released yet, we did an episode in Antarctica, the coldest, windiest, driest place in the world. Nothing lives, no water flows, everything's ice. The ice is 1.2 miles thick. Nothing lives there. So if you were ever stuck there, The only difference between being stuck there and being stuck on Mars is that you have oxygen to breathe, because there's no raw material. But it was awesome. It was awe-inspiring, but also I felt very, very vulnerable. But the beauty of it, and the magnificence and the emptiness and the fresh air just was amazing. And now I can answer that question easily. And I don't think that'll ever change from this point on. I'm not sure I'll ever beat Antarctica.
So you agree then that less is more? I heard from one of my friends that the most beautiful islands in Croatia are really not, I would say, something special on a first view. But he said that this is a little more than nothing. Do you agree with that explanation?
I would, especially in the Antarctica case. There is very little there, and yet it's so stunningly beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be a little bit provocative here, because we know that going to one of the few places that humans have not completely messed up is, and I will try to repeat the words in one of the series of John Oliver's talk show.
Oh, love him.
Is like, go everywhere but to the two extremities, right? To the two extremes of our planet, because just leave it there as it is.
Right, okay.
But I understand what you're saying, and I think something that is resonating with me, what you said, is the element of this emptiness, the void.
Yeah.
And perhaps is there a connection between how you perceive time in such a space that it creates this sense of luxury?
I think there it's a sense of being going there and getting a luxurious experience is the sense that I'm 0.0001% of the population that's ever lived that has set foot in Antarctica. And you're right, we don't ever want to get Antarctica to the point where there's over-tourism, ever. Most of the people who are on Antarctica, and by the way, another couple of stats just to give you a sense, Antarctica's 5.5 million square miles. It's almost twice the size of Australia. And yet, in the height of summer, which is, when the sun stays in the sky 24 hours a day, there are only 5,000 people inhabit Antarctica, and it's all research. And a few tourists. Where we went to, they only do 120 tourists per season. That's per year. Yeah. And in the winter, there's only 1,000 people in that huge mass.
Mainly scientists, that's all.
It's
all
mainly
scientists.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, because I think it's important for a few people to go there and come back with the very important message of, don't screw this up.
So could we take what you're defining as the height of the experience? Mm-hmm. Because you said luxury is about the experience, and I couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's not about the bling bling, it's about that growth. It's about doing something that you feel that you're special, that it is very personal, it's intimate. You're not standing in line to do it. I think that the example you gave with Mount Everest is perfect. Yeah. I like to give another example which happened in the Arctic, and that is actually, I think it was in Norway, a cruiser stopped on a beach and a couple of tourists went on it. Yeah. And they started picking on a bear, and the bear killed one of them. Yeah. So the bear had to be pulled down. Yeah, right. But they were basically going into the bear area, So how do we create our industry, that's the meetings industry, the tourism, the luxury tourism? How do we take what your moral of the story would be with Antarctica and replicate it to, let's say, other locations? Yeah,
you have to educate all of the stakeholders. You have to educate the governments in responsible travel. You have to educate the tourism groups, the local communities. You even have to educate them about responsibility within their own communities, and then ultimately you have to educate the travelers and the tourists. Those people should never have the opportunity to get on there and get that close to a bear. Part of the blame lies on them. Big part of the blame lies on the people who are organizing this trip, right? They should never have allowed these people to go on there. If they're allowing it, then the tourist automatically thinks this is okay. What do I know? I've never been here before. So it's about education and just being responsible. So,
Richard, how do you choose destinations you go?
And I throw a dart at a map.
Really? Just like that? Huh?
No,
Okay,
no.
Cool. And of course, in what case would you reject somebody because of greenwashing or whatsoever, you know?
Yeah.
Like I would say some agencies do not work with Shell, for example.
Right, exactly.
What is your opinion about it?
So choosing a destination is literally looking at places I've never been and want to go. And talking with people about they may, for example, we're both talking about Slovenia right now. It is on the radar for us to reach out to people from Slovenia, the right organization, the tourism board of Slovenia, and talk about doing an episode of season 3 there. Yeah. So for me, it's about finding places that are unique, that are not kind of the top of people's radar. Because I also don't want to add to over tourism. I'm always telling people, Paris is beautiful, Venice is wonderful, but start to think a little bit about places you could go where nobody else has ever been. And again, that fulfillment, that growth. I love that, by the way, that luxury is self-growth. I'm going to use that from now on. So don't charge me any money for the rights to it. Where were we? So I choose places. I do my research. I get online and make sure that they fall within all the parameters that we're looking for. Eco, sustainable, and that third pillar, that social responsibility. There are places that I avoid if it just doesn't provide that. I come across greenwashing all the time. The best example I can give is hotels. Like, hey, we're an eco hotel. We don't wash your towels every day. That's the definition.
A prototype definition.
Right, it's a definition of greenwashing, basically. But yeah, we do our research, and for me, it's going to places that I've never been before. And it's not always places I've always wanted to go to, because I'm learning every day of different areas and different places in the world, some I've never heard of.
Coming back to Scotland, how good is Scotland, your motherland, in regards of sustainability?
Yeah, they're actually really good. There's always room for improvement. Never rest on your laurels. A big part, Scotland does have a lot of raw materials, and that includes renewable energy. We've got lots of wind. We've got lots of water for hydroelectric power, and certainly plenty waves. We're only ever 8 miles, I think, from the coast on Scotland. So we have lots of renewable energy, but we've also got a beautiful landscape and a beautiful environment that we've recognized early on is something that we have to protect. And I think Scotland's done really well. There is an example where we're lacking. There's an island called Skye off the west coast of Scotland. Until 20 years ago, I believe, and it's beautiful. It is stunningly beautiful. Everybody should want to go there at some point.
I can confirm.
Yeah, have you been?
Yeah.
All right. So Skye is amazing. The problem that has occurred is that about 20, you used to have to take a ferry to Skye.
Now it's a bridge.
Now it's a bridge. So a ferry limited the amount of people every day, and it was a small amount of people. Now it's a bridge, it's unlimited. And unless you go at the right time of year, which is off season, which I always try to do, you're going to have a pretty crappy experience because it's overcrowded. And where you go to get in touch with nature, you got 50 other people standing around you, doing the Instagram picture, waiting for the same experience. So we're doing well, but there's definitely a place for improvement. But in the scale of the rest of the world, I think I might be a little biased, but I think we're pretty high up there.
I think Scotland is doing some things very right. And I mean, the Isle of Skye, the home of Talisker.
Yeah.
I was there off season.
Yeah.
We were pretty much alone with my
that's
friend.
the experience you want.
The sheep and the rain and the peat and just having whiskey down in the pub in the town. A beautiful experience. But again, it's about having this opportunity to encounter the local values in a way, and I think that's really, really magnificent. Now, if I take the example that you've given, and if we apply that onto, you choosing the destinations, we're now at IMEX. The world comes together in Frankfurt, hundreds of exhibitors, so many destinations. Have you found some new destinations here that have intrigued you or that are a surprise?
Absolutely. I'm gonna butcher this name because it's an emirate. Ras Al Khaimah. I think I might have. Hopefully, I did them right. They taught me how to say it yesterday.
Ras Al Khaimah.
Ras Al Khaimah. I've got to say it. Ras Al Khaimah. Yes. First of all, outside of most people probably have never heard of that, even though it's an emirate. It's Dubai, Abu Dhabi. Very few people, at least in the United States, and probably in the UK too. Very little people have heard of that emirate. But it's fascinated me, and especially what they're doing from a sustainable point of view, to the point that I'm now talking to them about doing an episode for season 3. I walk around here all day yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good place. Oh, that's a good place." The 2 places that I want to do are Namibia, which I didn't see here. Interestingly, Namibia is where the skeleton coast is. The desert meets the ocean. I want to see that. And Japan, which I see, I've never been to Japan, and it's so culturally diverse, and its landscape is so diverse, like most places, to be honest. But that intrigues me. So.
Well, you were in the media world for a long time. You are actually in the media world.
Yeah.
What is now different from the times you started, and what is the future of media? I mean, it's changing so fast. So basically, what is your idea about it?
I think it's a huge trust issue, right? Yeah. Any media that you're taking in, that you're absorbing, you almost have to do your due diligence in what you're reading every time, and scratch the surface a little. No matter how the source is, how reputable the source is, I think you still have to dig a little, and then you have to think about who's writing this piece and what perspective are they writing it from. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
You believe in content. I can feel it.
For
I
sure.
can feel it.
Absolutely. People want content. Like that's how they get out of their own place for the most part, whether it's on the paper or whether it's on the screen. So you just have to do your due diligence.
Richard, we usually finish with fire questions, short ones actually.
All right. Yeah.
For you, of course, beer or whiskey. Is that a question or not?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain more about it? You said that you work on
which one?
So that's a good question, actually. So I say whiskey because I'm from Scotland, and it's it's a big national pride to be able to produce a product that is globally recognized, globally enjoyed, and that as a result, it's actually a result of hundreds of years of blood, sweat, tears. We killed a few Englishmen along the way. But it's a product of Scotland, of the people of Scotland. It's not just Scotland, the environment, but the people and the environment. As far as which... that is very, very sustainable. Yes, and it's a very sustainable industry because it's important for us to protect one of the raw materials that goes into it, and that's water. You don't protect that, you're not getting good whiskey. So as far as which brand do I prefer, whichever one is in my hand.
Wow. Would you? This is off the topic, but would you agree that the best whiskies are not expensive whiskies?
The price doesn't determine whether whiskey is good or not at all. It's all very subjective. What you like and what I like. We both could taste the same whiskey. We could taste a whiskey that's $400. You and you might say, I might say amazing. Taste a whiskey that's $12. I might say, you'll say it's amazing. Blind tasting takes the price out of it.
Brilliant. I could go further in the whiskey debate, but I'm gonna say because you moved from Scotland to Virginia. What do you prefer? Do you prefer hot or cold?
Well, I grew up in the cold, so for a very long time, it was all about. When I first moved to the United States, I moved to Alabama. I attended college there, and it was in the South. Very, very warm, humid climate. I remember thinking, wow, the sun shines here every day. Even if it's a rainy day, for a minute, you at least see the sun. When you grew up in Scotland, it can be quite a dreary place. That's a Scottish word, very dreary. Dreeket is a word we use. Damp, cold, dark place. So when I got to the United States, I was like, this is amazing. For the first 20 years I was there. Now I look forward to seasons. And actually Virginia provides that more than Alabama. So I like the seasons, I like the hot, I like the cold. I like it all.
Well, Richard, you are in the midst of our industry for 2 days, but of course you watch us from the outside.
Yeah.
How can we become a better and more responsible industry? for the finale, I would say?
That's a very tough question because IMEX in general has done a lot. I see a lot of effort going into being sustainable, but I mentioned before, logistically it's very difficult. So there's always room for improvement. But I think definitely seeing, and it's active, it's being promoted, which is good. Again, a step in the right direction. It's being made aware. They're not just doing it in the background, they're making people aware that they're doing it, therefore hopefully bringing people in to join them in the crusade, really, that is trying to be more sustainable overall. I will leave you with this because I leave my presentations with this. In sustainability, we're not asking some people to do it all. We're asking everybody to do just a little bit. And I think if that continues to happen, then we'll eventually get to a good place. We are in a race against time, obviously. But I'm hoping that just people in their everyday lives just do a little bit.
Amazing, Richard. Thanks for your time, for this amazing discussion. Stay tuned. We are coming back in a few moments. And power to the meetings.
Yes, thank you.